Throughout galactic history, the Sith have been the scourge of life and civilization. Drawing upon the sinister energies of the dark side, their shadow would rise every few thousand years, bringing war, death, and destruction to countless star systems. Each time the Jedi would rise to oppose them, and each and every time, the Sith would be beaten back. And yet, despite their devastating legacy, the general populace knew almost nothing about them before the era of the Clone Wars. This historical amnesia was something that Darth Sidious and other Lords of the Rule of Two era exploited to perfection, with very little of the public actually understanding what a Sith Lord was. Their conquest became so much easier. But how could this all happen? How could a group responsible for so much death and galactic upheaval be forgotten so rapidly? Well, today, we're going to solve this mystery by diving into the fabric of galactic society, uncovering what happened to the memory of the Dark Lords of the Sith. But before we begin, there is yet another disturbance in the Force to address. Many of those watching still have not subscribed, so if you're fascinated with the deeper lore of a galaxy far, far away and desire more answers, force crush that subscribe button and let us know down below what other parts of the lore you would like us to explore next. Now, let's begin and uncover what the Jedi attempted to make us all forget: the Sith. One of the greatest attributing factors towards the Sith's obscurity is the almost equivalent obscurity of the Jedi Order. What many do not realize is that the knowledge of the galactic populace concerning the Jedi was bare bones to say the best. Just looking at the basic figures, there are tens, if not hundreds of trillions of beings within the Republic, and at the height of the Jedi Order, the Jedi only numbered around 10,000. The chances of the average person ever meeting or seeing a Jedi was minimal. In fact, we'd need C-3PO to run us through the odds of a Jedi encounter on any given day. With that being said though, what many people knew about the Jedi was their folk stories, their rumors, their legend. Unless they were religious, or they just were in the know, most people didn't even know what the Force was, much less the specifics of the light and the dark side. Generally though, people thought their battlefield exploits were either greatly exaggerated or were downright mythical. Only those who actually saw or met a Jedi would know the truth, a truth that evaded so many others, that they believed were just fairy tales, bedtime stories, nothing more. So if the Jedi at the height of their power were that unknown, then their historical enemies, the Sith, were even more cryptic. Assuming the common man had actually heard of the Sith in passing from a story, many looked at them as an esoteric cult that was destroyed by the Jedi. Growing up in school, most students of the Republic weren't even taught about the Sith in their usual curriculum. Information on the Sith was obviously highly regulated. In order to actually learn about the other Dark Lords though, they had to either major in the study or take special courses on Coruscant universities. One such course that we actually know of was taught by a Sith fanatic, Professor Mork Lundi. This man actually believed that the Sith were historically stronger than the Jedi, and that the Sith had only been defeated through flukes, such as the Jedi having the backing of the Republic. He even went as far as to become interested in their lore, and ended up driving himself into insanity and madness, especially after he undertook a mission and a quest to find the holocron of a Sith king that we all know very well, King Adis. As a result of his quest though, he was hunted down and arrested by the Jedi. A few years would pass, and one of his former students would follow his footsteps to find the exact holocron. This student was also eventually silenced by the Jedi though, and with now two perfect examples, it leads us to the full story of the blackout of the Sith knowledge, the Jedi. After studying the events of the Wars of the Republic history, it's almost maddening to see how far the Jedi have gone into covering up the Sith's mere existence. The days of Exar Kun saw the Jedi nearly destroyed, and the Republic brought to its knees. Exar marched into the Senate Assembly, mind-dominated all of them, and then killed the Supreme Chancellor right in front of their eyes. The Great Galactic War was a conflict on the scale never seen before, and would only be topped by the Clone Wars. The Sith managed to sack Coruscant, even destroy the Jedi Temple with Malgus, and they held an entire half of the galaxy in their grasp for nearly 40 years. But none of this is ever taught in schools, or even remembered. By now, these events are several thousand years old, and Sidious's time and the Jedi Order intentionally withhold this knowledge from the public unless it is specifically requested. Each time the Sith rose, they were defeated. The Jedi went on a purge wave to rid the galaxy of as much Sith knowledge, artifacts, and teachings as they possibly could. And the Jedi are actually very, very good at this. This is why it usually takes thousands of years before the next Sith will arise, and the next Sith Empire actually poses a legitimate threat. The Jedi have ensured that the Sith remained in the furthest recesses of the public's collective memory. This was so that they would have less of a chance of gaining more followers, so if no one knew about the Sith, then no one would seek them out. In fact, this was the entire purpose of a new branch of Jedi, the Jedi Shadows. The subsect of the Jedi Sentinels answered directly to the Council of First Knowledge. The Shadows were basically the Jedi's equivalent of Inquisitors. They would dispatch into the crevices of the galaxy to hunt down, to eradicate any trace of the dark side. If evil was found, it was burned. If an artifact was discovered, it was taken back to the temple, or also burned. If a teacher of the dark side was heard, they were to be silenced. The Jedi Shadows operated in total secrecy to blot out any mention of the Sith or the dark side to ensure peace should reign, but also likely disturbing the balance. But ironically, all of this information gatekeeping would end up being a part of the Jedi's ultimate destruction and downfall. Without knowledge of the Sith, there were very few legal safeguards to defend against their practices. According to Palpatine, the Sith were so unknown that there wasn't anything in the Constitution that banned their religion. In the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, this was a card that he pulled when Mace Windu attempted to arrest him. Palpatine had been recording the entire interaction, and he brilliantly planned on using this as evidence in the future to prove a Jedi uprising. When Windu accused him of being a Sith Lord, Palpatine coyly replied that even if there was such a thing, that was simply none of the Jedi Order's business. According to the Republic's Constitution's very broad Freedom of Religion Act, every practicing Sith was protected from persecution. Interestingly though, Darth Sidious and the rest of the Lords of the Rule of Two did not mind their order's obscurity. They weren't insulted that they had been pushed to the shadows after all that they had done. It was only natural. They would have done the exact same thing to the Jedi, no harsh feelings. And after the rise of the Galactic Empire, Sidious would do just that. But Palpatine would greatly enjoy the anonymity of the Sith. He would use it to his advantage, being one of his most deadly tools, a tool that was difficult to see. Because most people did not know that Dooku was a Sith, they believed that Dooku was simply a fallen Jedi who went mad. Palpatine then perpetuated this idea with propaganda, inspiring fear in the masses, but not fear of the Sith, fear of the Jedi. By the conclusion of the Clone Wars, people were terrified of the Jedi Order, and believed that any one of them could just snap one day. This fear was encouraged with every fallen Jedi, including the likes of Sora Bulk, Windu's own Padawan Depa Billaba, and another Jedi Master, Quinlan Vos. This would make it even more convincing when Palpatine made it look as though the Jedi had attempted a coup against the office of the Chancellor. And when Palpatine became the Emperor, he had no interest in outing himself or Vader as Sith. In the chapter Hiding in Plain Sight from Palpatine's manifesto, he writes this: "The galaxy is free of Jedi, and the citizens rejoice. Therefore, it would be foolish to replace their regime with an identical system led by the Sith, at least do it publicly. The weak do not understand the Force. They venerate those who appear to be ordinary people like themselves. They cheered at the news that a resolute old man had survived a Jedi assassination attempt. In Palpatine, an ordinary senator from Naboo, they see a model of human achievement. My apprentice and other agents of my will are fearsome embodiments of the dark side. Mere rumors of their presence are enough to frighten citizens into obedience. But those same citizens must not know that a Sith Lord has constructed the Galactic Empire until the time is too late." There you have it, straight from the horse's mouth. This worked brilliantly for the Sith, and the obscurity of their religion would follow them into the age of the Empire. None of the public knew that Vader was a Sith Lord, and even most within the Empire were unaware. They assumed him to be something like a Jedi, a servant to the Emperor. The same thing with the Inquisitorius. Only the highest ranking Imperial officers knew that the Sith Order was around, and were aware of Vader's position as one. They most likely discovered this after doing their own research into Vader. Ironically, it was the appearance of Vader that caused many to believe that the Sith had returned, at least many high-ranking Imperial officials that were intelligent, individuals like Thrawn and Tarkin. They felt intimidated by him when he came out of nowhere, boasting to have the authority of the Emperor himself. But while the Moffs and the Grand Admirals knew about Vader, only a very, very tight circle of individuals knew about Sidious. It would be long after his death before it was revealed by Luke that Sidious had been a Sith Lord all along. And if you would like a video about that moment, be sure to request it down below and we would be happy to deliver. But anyway guys, this is why the Sith were forgotten so easily by the galaxy and the public at large. A fascinating question that I've had for some time. Even the most impactful events, time can wash away, smooth it over like water eroding a canyon. But by the time of the Clone Wars, it had been 1,000 years since the last war with the Sith. For reference, around 1,000 years ago now, we would still be deep in the medieval era. Even many members of the Jedi thought of them as legends, as the boogeymen of the past. The Jedi had been so confident that they had defeated the Sith one final time, that they allowed their hubris, their own erasure of them, to be their downfall. So my friends and acolytes, do you believe that the lack of knowledge about the Sith contributed to the Jedi's downfall? I certainly do. Or do you think it would have been more dangerous to have more information widely available? A dangerous conundrum and decision. Tell us your thoughts about this in the comments down below. And as always, thank you so much for joining us in today's video, and may the Force be with you.